Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy virtual studio right here in the Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Thursday, November 6th, and I am so sorry I started the show so late. As you all know, I'm the only girl who's late to my own show almost every day, but usually it's only about 10, 11, 12 minutes. Today, I was bragging about my daughter with TJ, our producer. She just won. They won their section semifinals game last night. She was a total stud. So I started talking about volleyball and beach volleyball and completely forgot to start my show. So I apologize to all of you for being late once again. We have a big jam-packed show for you today. We are going to welcome into the Joy virtual studio for the first time an amazing attorney out of New York State. His name is Chad Davenport. He is a medical freedom warrior. And despite having Bobby Kennedy Jr. ensconced in power at HHS and Donald Trump as the president of the United States of America, we are still suffering from medical tyranny, not only here in New York State, but as you guys learned yesterday, in states like Charlotte, North Carolina, and also in the red state of Texas. While some things are happening in the medical community, in the medical movement or the MAHA movement, we're not seeing any movement when it comes to medical freedom. And Chad Davenport has represented hundreds of families here in New York State. We're going to talk about pretty horrifying cases here in the state and across the country. So we're going to bring him in about 15 minutes to go over the state of medical freedom. Horrifying interview yesterday. If you did not catch my interview yesterday with Kirsten Cosgrove and a mom, Shelly, out of Charlotte, North Carolina, being forced to administer chemotherapy by a hospital system in North Carolina, but also being accused of not administrating the chemotherapy. They're having now CPS called a potential medical kidnap case, one of the worst I have ever heard. The interview yesterday was horrifying, unbelievable. We're working today to chop that interview up, to isolate it out of my show, and to bring out sound bites. We're also working with Kirsten Cosgrove and the family to drive people to a central location to learn about this case and push it out as fast as humanly possible. I'm going to be working on that all afternoon today and into tomorrow. So you guys can see more coming out on that. We have to save this child. There are really dire consequences to what we're seeing happen. And so we have to get as much information out as possible. So we're going to be working on that. If you have time, go back and check out yesterday's interview. I will probably post it as a live over the weekend and a standalone interview so that we can drum up more views and really try to push it out. Maybe we can get Rumble to apply some editors' picks to that as well. And of course, I'll be pushing it out to every single person I know in the medical freedom community to sound the alarm on this. We need as much scrutiny and as much sunlight on this as humanly possible. That is what is going to keep this child the safest. Little Judah, 8 years old, with an amazing family in North Carolina. So we're going to be focusing on that this week into the weekend and next week as well. Mark my words. But we're going to have a conversation with Chad Davenport a little bit later in the program. But you see the headlines today. The tech bubble is imploding. The writing is on the wall. It's everywhere. Everyone knows it. The only question is, when is this going to happen? We're going to have Daniel Horowitz of course, the Conservative Review, join us tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show. Do not miss that interview. We're also bringing in Jack Gamble. His handle is at JG_Nuke. He's one of the best financial and Wall Street analysts in the nation today, bar none. If you aren't following him on Twitter right now, you need to be. He does a morning update, 30 to 40 minutes every morning. He features it on his YouTube channel and is now also pushing it out on Twitter. This guy gets it. And he is echoing the sentiment that we saw yesterday all over Twitter from people like Ed Dowd and Daniel Horowitz, calling out what appears to be a massive tech bro bailout. We have been told that the AI revolution and big technology revolution is barreling on. It's going to change the world forever. The robots are going to replace your jobs. No one's ever going to have to work again, says Elon Musk, because we're all just going to live a life of leisure and let the robots do everything. It's all a giant scam. It's all a complete bubble. And most of the market gains that we've seen over the past 5 years since the lockdowns of 2020 have been built on this false bubble, the AI tech bubble, driven by 6 or 7 major companies that are in bed with the Republicans and the Democrats in Washington, D.C., and driving this economy off a cliff. Well, it all came to a head yesterday as people are beginning to realize that the writing is on the wall. This is what Daniel Horowitz had to say. Oh, by the way, speaking of Jack Gamble, JG_nuke, he has a phenomenal 10-minute video overviewing what appears to be one of the largest, what will be, if Donald Trump approves this and pushes it through, one of the largest government bailouts of private corporations this country has ever seen. This will make George W. Bush's bank bailout after the housing crisis of 2008 look like child's play. And it's happening very quickly. This is why we need to speak up and stand up right now. Absolutely unbelievable. In fact, that was what sparked the launch of the Tea Party, the grassroots organization that pushed back against the Republican Party and George W. Bush for obvious cronyism, obvious favoritism of massive corporate institutions. Well, they're going to be doing that. They're going to do it. And it's insane. This is what Daniel Horowitz had to say about it just a couple hours ago. He posted this out on Twitter. I have never seen such financial gaslighting before. No technology that is really on the cusp of saving the world needs you to sacrifice land, food, energy, water, and also back massive loan guarantees and bailouts to make it viable. You never saw a smartphone developer cycling in and out of the White House 2 decades ago, getting all sorts of favors and getting the government to monopolize the public square on its behalf. This is so much more like the Green New Deal than previous iterations of the Industrial Revolution or Digital Revolution. Yesterday, they dropped all pretenses. And those pretenses were dropped in a statement made by OpenAI CFO Sarah Friar. And she suggested, I have that here, in a Wall Street Journal Tech Live forum. And by the way, the 10-minute video overview that I have linked from Jack Gamble in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show will explain this in further detail and also has the clip of what Sarah Friar had to say. But on November 5th, she publicly stated that the company is seeking a, quote, federal backstop or guarantee to facilitate financing for enormous AI chip and data expansions, estimated to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. By the way, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has never turned a profit. Did you know that? They lost $3 billion in 2024. They lost $12 billion in just the last reported quarter. And they are now that people are beginning to figure this out, they're now moving into the realm of begging for government bailouts and federal loan guarantees, which will generate lower interest rates for them and help them with the valuation of their stock. They are also, talk about pay to play and insider trading. They are also preparing a blockbuster IPO valued at $1 trillion, which would enrich a selected group of insiders who are playing ball with Donald Trump. Like, this is right in our faces. And it is so disgusting that Ed Dowd, who does not usually speak out on these type of issues and get into the political arena, he tweeted this out just 10 hours ago. If the Trump administration backstops OpenAI, who is planning an IPO at the $1 trillion valuation for the benefit of its exclusive shareholders, you can kiss the midterms goodbye, and it will be well deserved. He also sent a memo to the White House after Donald Trump posted this CNN headline saying Trump's undeniable stock market victory that no one saw coming. It was a CNN headline, interestingly enough, left-wing news organization propping up the absolutely false propaganda that this economy is doing gangbusters. Donald Trump tweeted that out. Ed Dowd responded. Memo to the White House. 90% of the country doesn't care about 7 AI stocks on their last legs holding up the indices, meaning Ed Dowd knows that this is a bubble. And this bubble is about to burst. And when it bursts, it's going to take down the stock market and the trillions of dollars that are held in individual retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, you name it. And they know it. That's how disgusting this is. Now, no one in conservative media is talking about this. Do you understand how deeply I have to dig to find good sources? JG Nuke has been phenomenal. Daniel Horowitz has been great. Ed Dowd has been great. Peter Schiff has been awesome on these topics. Catherine Austin Fitz, of course, has been really great. We've had a couple other guests in on the Shannon Joy Show over the past 6 months. If you watch the Shannon Joy Show on a regular basis, you knew this was coming because this was baked into the cake, and it has been baked into the cake for the past 4 years. And this is why big tech and the tech bros, Sam Altman and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Palantir purchased Donald Trump in 2024, in the summer of 2024, and pushed him over the finish line. This is the payout. This is the payback deal. And it's going to be on the backs of you and me, regular Americans. The consumer economy is already collapsing. All right. We have a piece from Peter Atwater here. He calls it the Jenga economy. So over the past 5 years, the top 10% of wealth earners in the country have been driving all of the economic growth, and all of the stock market growth has been generated by these 7 AI corporations who have been pumping their stocks using access to the White House, not just during the Biden administration, but even more heavily during the Trump administration. And this is creating a very unstable economy. We saw that with the Chipotle canary in the coal mine, right? Horrible earnings report because regular people don't have money anymore. People aren't living paycheck to paycheck. They're living loan to loan. That's how bad it's getting for the vast majority, 90% of the American population. It's moving in to the middle class and even into the upper middle class. And that's why Peter Atwater has now been quoted, an article in Yahoo Finance, November 6, 2025, saying that I feel like our economy today resembles a top-heavy Jenga tower. As confidence grows, so does the height of the tower. And at the peak, the building resembles a Jenga tower with gaping holes. And this Jenga tower is driven by the tech bubble exclusively and by the top 10% of wealth owners in the United States of America. We're about to get screwed unless we stand up and speak out. We cannot let this bailout happen. These companies need to crash and burn on their own. And we're going to be getting into this heavily tomorrow with Daniel Horowitz, and then on Monday with special analysis from one of the best market analysts and tech researchers out there, Jack Gamble. So you're not going to want to miss. If you want to protect your family, if you want to protect your wealth, you are not going to want to miss the next 2 or 3 shows of the Shannon Joy Show. And we are not winning. We are not even close to winning. You know who's winning? Donald Trump, the crony capitalists around him, the tech bros, Democrats and Republicans who are engaging in insider trading as they are holding positions of power. Oh, and by the way, guess what? You don't know any of the real numbers. The numbers are terrible. The job numbers are horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. In fact, October 2025, the worst job numbers since 2002, if you can believe it, in the month of October. Also, hiring for the holiday season, it looks to be softening as well. Dear help me God, says Buskman on the live chat, please control my anger. I know, Buskman, this kills me. Like, imagine if all of the biggest talking yappers out there in conservative media or the libertarians were actually telling their constituencies and their audiences the truth about this economy and this president. It's devastating. It makes me angry too. Future Ez is with us on the live chat. Future Ez, great to see you. He's here every day on the live chat to advocate for Nick Fuentes. So thank you, Future Ez. I know you really like him. CJP Rumble, great to see you today on the live chat. Hey, Bill Benz, good to see you as well. Opossum King, appreciate you. We also have TJ producing the Shannon Joy Show today. And yeah, we have a lot to get to. You guys will see in the show notes, we have my top headlines. OpenAI Chief Financial Officer Sarah Frier also suggesting that the market is overly focused on anxiety about a possible bubble in the artificial intelligence sector, which is so obvious now, and should muster more exuberance about the technology's potential. She said, I don't think there's enough exuberance about AI when I think about the actual practical implications and what it can do for individuals. And she said this in addition to letting the cat out of the bag that she and her boss, Sam Altman, are heading to Washington, D.C. to beg for a bailout. The scale is astronomical. Analysts warn, this is from an AI overview from Grok, that OpenAI, that AI firms like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, and NVIDIA could require up to $800 billion in off-balance sheets financing by 2028 with government guarantees, making private lending cheaper and riskier for taxpayers. So they're going to dump this all on the back of taxpayers. Not only are your 401ks and IRAs loaded up with the bubble stocks, the bubble tech stocks that have been accelerating since 2020, they are now likely going to burst that bubble, screw you, and then put you on the hook for these companies and bailing them out. I mean, this is horrifying. This is absolutely horrifying. Unusual Whales, big aggregator for the markets and the tech industry, had this breaking yesterday. It's going viral, over 2 million views. OpenAI is requesting U.S. government to support to help guarantee financing for the massive investments in AI chips and data centers it needs for expansion, per Bloomberg. Rudy Havestein of Senior Markets said they want to privatize the profits for the insiders and socialize the losses. Typical. All right, we can still stop this. This has not happened yet. And the good news is Sarah Frier, the CFO of OpenAI, has already come out this morning backtracking her statements, saying that she misspoke when she let that cat out of the bag, that they're going to be going for government bailouts and also taxpayer-backed loan guarantees. So they're backing off that fast, and that is because the market, right, outside of the left-wing news media, the right-wing news media, outside of Con Inc., Bizarro Con, outside of the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, the market is saying, oh, hell no. The market is saying, we don't want these bailouts. And George W. Bush might have been able to get away with it, but we're not going to let Trump get away with it. And that's what conservatives need to be saying today, tomorrow, and for the foreseeable future, because the wheels are falling off this golden jalopy. And I'm the only girl, I guess, in conservative media with the balls to tell you all about what is actually going on. It's interesting, isn't it? So we are going to be focusing on this. By the way, it looks as if Donald Trump's tariffs, the executive powers that he has claimed to impose tariff taxes on the United States consumers and small to medium-sized businesses and importers in the U.S., looks like it's going to go down. Supreme Court open arguments started yesterday in the Supreme Court, and the lines of questioning, from what I've heard, by conservative justices were brutal, absolutely brutal. So that is going to be, you can never really predict what the Supreme Court is going to do, but we need to rein in and check the power of this president as he is creating a cartel-style government apparatus, a banana republic, and doing it on the backs of the people who put him in office. Disgusting. Disgusting. Guitar Lily, great to see you on the live chat as well. Karen Carpenter, 27. Glad to see you too. All right. That is all we have time for in the opening monologue of the Shannon Joy Show. Wanted to overview what was going on because this started breaking last night. If you want a better understanding and if you want an understanding of what is going on in general in the markets, I want to highly recommend that you follow at JG_Nuke. That is Jack Gamble on the Twit, and also follow him on his YouTube channel as well. He does a 30 to 40 minute market overview every single morning. It's for lay people. It's for people like you and me. There is much that we can do. Gold, silver, real estate, protecting portions of your Roth IRA, your 401k by moving into assets that you can control. So important. You guys know I've been talking about this with so many experts over the past year. There is still time to do that. And I think we're going to see a safe haven in real assets, hard assets like gold and silver, even futures in gold and silver, certainly real estate and in other areas as well. So we're going to get Peter Schiff on as well to talk about this. These headlines will dominate the next 12 months, the next 12 to 18 months. Sorry to the medical freedom community. We didn't get anything we wanted. They got into the White House on the backs of medical freedom warriors, totally betrayed us. Now they're moving on to crashing our economy and dropping the next nuclear bomb on the free Republic of the United States of America. And, sorry, this is where it's going. All right, we are going to come back. Speaking of the medical freedom community languishing, we have had some wins. We've had some court cases. We haven't had a lot of wins when it comes to the Trump administration or anything within the federal government, within HHS in terms of medical freedom. But we have had court cases and we have had wins, blockbuster, like groundbreaking wins from people like Chad Davenport, who has been representing families in New York State for quite some time and is going to give us an update on the state of medical freedom in general in context of vaccine requirements and other things. He is in the belly of the beast, the worst of the worst. And if we don't stop this in New York State, I guarantee you that this is going to come to red states across the entire country. The state of Texas is already gone. You heard the testimony from Michelle, the mom of the boy in North Carolina. She moved to North Carolina, escaping New York State because of medical mandates, only to find herself now trapped within medical mandates again in the state of North Carolina. This is why I have been telling you we have to pay attention to New York. This is why I've been telling you the core of this movement is medical freedom. It isn't making America healthy again. It isn't addressing red food dye number 27 and Tylenol. It is about the core premise of what it means to be free. And at that core, it is the right for you to decide what is done to your body with full informed consent. And it is the right of every parent to determine what is best for their children regarding the education and upbringing of their children. Okay? That is at the core, and that is being ripped away from us despite winning an election that we thought would further the cause of medical freedom. So we're going to hit this when we come back with Chad Davenport and context of cases that he is working on right now. 2 students in upstate New York now denied education because of their vaccine status. This is after previous court rulings have found that to be unconstitutional. He's going to fill us in on that case and more when we come back right here in the Shannon Joy Show. So keep it tuned right here. We're going to take a word from our sponsors and we'll be back to continue the show.
Have you thought about backup power for your home or office? Here at Satellite Phone Store, we are well aware of a lot of different scenarios where you may lose power. That could be anything from weather to emergency situations. And we are offering a simple, effective, expandable solution for your home, which is the EcoFlow Smart Home Panel.
This panel can be installed in line with the circuitry of your home or office. You have the option of 10 circuits that you wish to power in an emergency. This means that if you want to be selective on what needs power in an emergency situation, you can power just the vitals or more. What this means is that if you want, you can just distribute power to your kitchen, for example, giving you power to keep the refrigerator and cooking going without interruption. If you're in an office, this can serve to keep computers, hard drives, and servers running without interruption. More or less, this lets you tailor a system that lets you conserve and distribute power where you see fit. It is able to power water heaters, well pumps, and dryers. If the power goes down, it will automatically start powering your home in 20 milliseconds, making a seamless transition to backup power. The home panel works with the Delta Pro series, which is expandable. If you want a basic backup system, you can use just one, or plug in two at the same time, which are also capable of being daisy-chained to 2 more units and a smart generator, effectively giving you 25 kilowatt hours of power. If you want something to sustain you for longer, you can purchase as many units as you please as standby, that way you can alternate plugging into the system. The home panel will charge the units from the grid when they are not being used. And if you want, you can add solar panels to the system to continue charging your battery bank even if there's not power coming from the grid. There's also an option for a dual fuel generator that runs off of propane and gas. You need an app in order to set up your home panel. What you will be setting up is the voltage. You can customize the circuits with a name, amperage, and what kind of appliances you are running off that circuit. You can turn on and off each circuit through the app. You can also monitor how much power is being consumed by each circuit. You can create automation so that if the power goes out, it will switch to backup. This also allows you to use the backup system during peak hours from the grid, allowing you to save money when the cost of power is higher. Another really big advantage to the Delta Pro series is that these are portable units. You can use them camping, you can take them to another home, or you can bring them back and forth from your office.
Thank you guys for watching this. If you have any questions, please contact the Satellite Phone Store. We will also be coming out with more videos, so make sure you like and subscribe.
Big thank you to our sponsors over at Purge. Right now, this is the product that I've been using. I'm on day 7 of my 15-day intestinal purge. So this is an advanced cleanse for digestive health. And, you know, growing up, speaking of our healthcare system, every time you get sick, whether you have the sniffles, a sore throat, inflammation, you go to the doctor and it's always either a virus or a bacteria, bacteria. So you get an antiviral or an antibacteria. Well, when was the last time you went to your medical doctor when you were dealing with some sort of malady and they said to you, hey, you know what? Maybe it's a parasite. Maybe it's not viral or bacterial, but maybe it's parasitic. This idea that humans can't have parasites or don't have parasites is one of the most interesting suppression suppressed pieces of information that I have seen. And I just thought of, when I first started thinking about parasites, I'm like, wow, like no one ever talks about them. But it is very true that humans can have parasites, and those parasites can impact your health in many, many negative ways. Right now, Purge is giving you guys 15% off of your order if you go to www.purgestore.com/joy. That is purgestore.com/joy. Use the promo code JOY. Join me on this cleanse, right? Again, we can't do anything about the parasites in Washington, D.C., but we can take care of it. We can take responsibility for our own bodies and make sure that we are naturally healthy with regular parasitic cleanses. 15% off right now in your order if you go to purgestore.com/joy. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. I have settled myself down. You know, I get hot. I get a little hot when I see shysters and criminals and crooks in Washington, D.C. lying to our people and seeking to screw us. You know, it gets me going. But yeah, it's bad. We're going to begin again. Daniel Horowitz tomorrow, live on the Shannon Joy Show. We're going to be talking about this. Jack Gamble on Monday of next week on the Shannon Joy Show. We're also we're going to be bringing in Matt Kibbe, either not next week, but the week after. Dane Wigington, he is the foremost expert on geoengineering, solar radiation management, and also cloud seeding. He is the lead expert on what's happening in the skies. We're going to have him in as well. We have a lot of I'm missing a couple too. We have a lot of really big guests coming up. So make sure that you are following the Shannon Joy Show right now. If you're on Rumble and you're watching and you like this show, please smash that thumbs up button right now. It helps us with the algorithm. We would love to see you in the live chat. Ollie Robin 9, great to see you on the live chat. That's a new chatter on the Rumble live chat. Appreciate you. We are also, of course, broadcasting live on Twitter, live on Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV. We are live on the Died Suddenly platform, live on YouTube, live on Facebook, Substack, growing the SJ platform and the network every single day. If you guys like the show, please like it, share it, retweet it, send a comment, join the chat. You name it, that helps us because independent organic growth is the only way that we grow here on the Shannon Joy Show. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to our sponsors. Make sure you guys check out Purge right now. I'm on, I don't know what day I'm on, like 10, 11, I can't remember. But I love the Purge Cleanse. You just heard about it in the last commercial. Make sure you use that promo code JOY and get your Purge today. 15% off for the Joy audience. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to bring in our next guest. He is Chad Davenport. He is a medical freedom advocate and an attorney. Davenport.law is his website. You can find him on Facebook where he does a lot of his work. He is under Chad Davenport. And this guy is a New York hero. Scored one of the biggest victories for medical freedom with our amazing friend and my heart, Sujata Gibson, for medical freedom, which I want to hear about before we get into the cases that you are following now. Chad, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show for the very first time. And I really hope that this will not be the last time because I am so impressed with what you've been doing. I've been meaning to get a hold of you for a while. So great job. He's from the neighboring town of Buffalo, New York. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Shannon, how's it going? Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Let's start with your recent, and this was a groundbreaking decision that you secured along with Sujata Gibson on behalf of a young girl who was denied education because of her vaccine status. And you guys won a very, very important victory just a few months ago, which changed the game for everyone. Let's start there with that. And then we will go into now how New York State is clawing back, pushing back, doing everything they can to seize the bodies of New York children again through forced and coerced vaccination, which is why we're here today. You're representing two students who are now being denied education once again because of vaccine status. But let's go back to that court case, how you got involved in this and what that achieved. And then we'll move into what we need to do moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Great introduction as well. I really appreciate the kind words. And Sujata's fantastic. Sujata's really the one who got me to get involved with Children's Health Defense, and then also to become heavily involved in this vaccine waiver issue in New York State that I really did not know much at all about. As of last year, so I was working at a law firm last year in Buffalo, New York, and we had a bunch of clients come in. Well, not a bunch. We had a family come in who they were having a vaccine waiver issue. They had a valid medical waiver that was being rejected by New York State and by their school district. And that was my first exposure to this issue. I didn't even know that you could get a medical waiver for vaccines. That's not something that I had ever needed or that I had ever known anyone to need in my immediate family. But these were good clients, and they gave me this issue. I'm a civil rights attorney by trade. So, I mean, my legal career started in 2019, and I've been suing municipalities, towns, and states for a while. And then this was just kind of passed off to me, being the next civil rights issue for me to kind of take on. And, when I was going through learning this area of law, I learned first off how complicated it is. There's this really simple statute. It's Public Health Law 2164 subsection 8. And anyone who has listened to any of my Zoom calls or any of my trainings knows that that is in the public health law for New York State. And it says students who have a valid medical waiver shall be exempt from New York's medical requirements, vaccination requirements. It says shall, which means that there's no discretion. And that is something that the Second Circuit and federal courts have said over and over again. It's something that I learned through that case at my last law firm. And it's something that we just emphasized over and over. We had to go through a full hearing. There was discovery. There were live witnesses and testimony. It was basically a full trial in front of this federal court judge where the family, I'm just going to say they had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to my last law firm to get a medical exemption accepted. A medical exemption. And again, there is no discretion. That statute is super simple. It is one line. It is not as complicated as the New York State Department of Health and Schools and school districts try to make it seem. So we convinced a federal court judge. We won. My understanding is that that was the first time that a court had ever told a school or school district that they are required to accept a medical exemption. I was just informed last night by the New York State Department of Education, interestingly enough, because of a quote that I made in Children's Health Defense article. They pointed out to me that there was actually one decision back in 2003 from the commissioner's office that also granted and forced a school district to have to accept a medical exemption, which is great. But I mean, that was the only one that existed prior to the federal court decision. And it's a 2003 commissioner's appeal decision. And the only place you're ever going to find it is on the New York State Education Department website. So this was a long time coming for people. This has been an issue going for a long time. And, advocates have been going for the religious exemption a lot with prior litigation. And when they did that, obviously the federal court, Second Circuit, and up to this point, really the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court hasn't taken one of our cases. The Second Circuit has said that it's okay. But in doing that, they strengthened the medical exemption. They made it this mandatory, non-discretionary language, which really, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the statute says anyway. So it's not like the federal court said something that the statute doesn't say. They were just explaining to everybody, schools, districts, you don't have this authority. You cannot come in and say, I disagree with the medical reason that your doctor is saying. But schools and school districts, they do it over and over again. They've done it since Starpoint. And that led to the case that I took on with Sujata, which was Oceanside, which we were successful again in August. And, the Oceanside judge made it very clear again. He said it on the transcript. Unfortunately, there's no published decision of it, which, again, makes it more difficult for other attorneys, schools, districts, others to be able to cite it and rely on it or just use it to educate themselves because you got to pay for a transcript to be able to get it. So it's not easy to find, but it's there. And there are two federal court judges, right? So we have the Starpoint decision, which is a 55-page written decision by a judge within the Western District, very well-respected, highly educated judge, legal scholar, right? Explaining how clear the statute is, that there is no discretion and the medical director for the school had no right to be able to come in and say, I disagree with your treating physician. And then we had the Oceanside case which was even more egregious because we had 6 doctors, including one medical expert that Children's Health Defense, because it was funded through Children's Health Defense, was able to pay for. So you're talking about 6 medical exemptions, an expert coming in and saying this child shouldn't be vaccinated. And in fact, some of them saying that, and keep in mind, she's fully vaccinated except for one hepatitis B booster, right?
Wow.
And the crazy part is that if you had hepatitis B, the school could not kick you out of school. But because she didn't have the hepatitis B booster, they were kicking her out of school and not allowing her in school, which is just insane. Again, she's received every other vaccine except for that. Now in 2019, when they took away the religious exemption, this child was forced on an aggressive catch-up schedule. She was hurt and injured by getting all those vaccines at that time. She suffers now from sporadic issues with paralysis. She tries to be as active as she can, but she has, other, rash issues and, other autoimmune hypersensitivity issues as well, immune sensitivity issues too. And so all of this came from the very aggressive schedule because she was perfectly fine and healthy before the 2019 exemption was taken away and she was put on that very aggressive catch-up schedule. Then she continued to receive the additional vaccines that she's needed since 2019. And all she asked for was an exemption for one hepatitis B booster, 6 doctors, some of whom said that she might die if she receives this additional dose. And that wasn't enough for the school and district. We had to go to federal court. We had to have a national organization, Children's Health Defense, fund litigation. And the school district, by the way, is paying their own attorneys, and they're going to have to pay us and Children's Health Defense for our attorney's fees when we win in this case and we get this and keep this child in school for the rest of the year. They're going to owe us all of that. And for what?
Right.
For one hepatitis B booster, where we also, if you look up, there's been FOIL requests on this and people have asked and looked into this. There's not one documented case of hepatitis B transmission in a school setting, which makes a lot of sense because most people aren't having sex and doing drugs when they're in school. So let's be practical. Let's be smart. And let's understand that somebody like this, right? Somebody who doesn't have one hepatitis B booster, she's still out in the public. She is still, able to go to stores. She's able to go bowling. She's able to go to the movies. You're just keeping her away from school. But what is the public health benefit for doing so? Because you couldn't kick her out if she had hepatitis B, and you're going to kick her out for not having a vaccine. Just make that make sense. And I think most people, when they hear that, they're like, that makes no sense. I disagree with that. I don't want my government paying all this money for this issue. That makes no sense to me.
Right. This is just unbelievable. So this is the case that you won. Essentially, you guys were victorious. The school had to admit this young girl, and they had to accept her medical waiver for vaccination. 2 quick questions for you. First and foremost, why most school districts, administrators, principals, superintendents would like to avoid massive lawsuits and paying attorneys massive amounts of money to adjudicate this. Most principals, administrators, school nurses are not rabid vaccinazis. They're not like, they don't love vaccines. I know because I've grappled with my own school district on this. And I've had my own experiences here in New York on this exact situation. They really don't care that much about whether or not your child is vaccinated. I'm just going to tell you guys that's the reality. Yet somehow every school district in New York State, in the exact same way, are rejecting hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of medical waivers and medical exemptions coming from licensed New York State doctors. And it's not a doctor that is denying the medical exemption, in case you were wondering. It is the principal or the administrator acting on the advice of a roving medical doctor expert that consults with a dozen different school districts. So in our case, you had a principal denying the child's own doctor's advice, right? So taking the your doctor is saying the child cannot take this vaccine. It will injure them, kill them, harm them. They're allergic, whatever the reason is. They've had previous adverse reactions to this particular vaccine. It's not even a medical doctor that is denying it. It is a low-level elementary school principal who signs the document. My point in all of this is that normal, rational humans don't go out. There's got to be some larger apparatus with a larger agenda at the state level or the federal level, like, or within the Department of Health, that is very systematically like pursuing this doggedly, even after victories in the federal court, because you won this victory. That was a blanket. I mean, that basically sent the signal to every school district: you cannot deny a medical waiver, period. And you guys were having great success with all sorts of medical waivers being accepted in schools across New York State. And then just recently, and this is why you're here with me today, recently, the state is now once again actively pursuing and sending out false information and false guidance to the districts, bullying them potentially into now clawing back the accepted medical waiver and denying future medical waivers, which is like blowing my mind right now. So can you walk us through that part of it and explain to me, if you can, like, what is this obsession? I mean, I think New York State is probably the worst geographic area for medical tyranny in the entire world. There is no place like New York State, Chad, that I have seen anywhere, even California. And I'm just trying to understand why. Like, what is the impetus? What are they trying to protect? Is it essentially they want to protect the concept or the idea of states controlling bodies, controlling children in their bodies, or intervening? I just can't make sense of it.
Thank you. That's a really good question, really good thing for us to be able to talk about right now, because I think the most concerning part of this entire medical tyranny is really the New York State Department of Health and seeing the worst of our government, and really what big government looks like and what big government does when it feels like it has power and when it feels like it has control over people. They feel like they can control this narrative. They feel like they can control it and say that, we're doing this in the name of public health. Everybody who submits medical waivers, they're all fraudulent. There's no such thing as a real medical waiver. Nobody's really hurt by vaccines. That's what they tell people. And that's my understanding of what they're typically telling people in these training sessions and, behind closed doors with the medical directors between the New York State Department of Health and medical directors for schools. One of the things that's extremely concerning for me is that it seems like a lot of this is motivated by money. You talked about your medical director and how your medical director probably has about 12 different school districts, that they're overseeing. And that's not unique. Most of these medical directors, they are career medical directors. They do not have treating patients. Some of them do. Some of them are still involved in private practice. But for the most part, they are hired out through third-party independent companies, and they basically pick up as many school districts as they can possibly handle. I've done depositions of these, and I did one where he's down on Long Island. He has about 15 different school districts, and he's living in Florida the entire time while he's passing medical judgment and denying people's, medical waivers. He's not, none of these people, right? These medical directors, they have 15 different school districts, right? Some of them, there's thousands of students in each of those school districts. They do not have time to go through the medical records and the medical history and do proper evaluations of any of these students who they are passing judgment on and saying, well, if they're not going to get a vaccine, if they're not going to get their vaccination, they can be homeschooled. And they say it so coldly, and they say it, like it means nothing to them, because it really doesn't. When you're talking about somebody who is overseeing 15 different school districts, thousands of kids, your child is nothing more than a statistic to them. And that's a statistic that gets reported to New York State. And at the end of every single year, New York State does an audit of all the schools and districts throughout New York State for their vaccine compliance. And they are sticklers. They will go through every single waiver. They will go through every single student who is, enrolled within your school district. They want to know which vaccines they've received. They want to know when they received them. They want to make sure that they were received on time. They want to make sure that there was no delay. And if you have a medical waiver, here's the crazy part. I'm starting to hear from schools, districts, and attorneys basically saying, we want to accept your medical waiver. But if we end up accepting this, we're going to get our wrists slapped by the New York State Department of Health, and they're going to pass substantial fines. They're threatening us with $2,000 a day fines for every single day that we allow a student to be in school with a medical waiver that we come back on our audit as the New York State Department of Health and say, you school district, you shouldn't have accepted this. So $2,000 a day. And that's what these schools, districts, superintendents, and principals, that's what they're fearing right now. And they don't want to my understanding is, from a lot of these principals and superintendents that I'm speaking with, right? They want the students in school. They realize that, this is an impediment to a child's education, but they have boards of directors to answer to. And those boards of director are being advised by medical directors or attorneys for the school and school district that they're going to be fined $2,000 a day if they accept this medical waiver. And then they're basically saying, well, this guy, Chad Davenport, he's sending a letter saying, we're going to sue you and then we're going to come after you for all the attorney's fees. Well, let's take that risk because, right? This is the calculus that they must be taking because the federal courts have been so clear that they don't have the right to do this. And I can't take each of my clients, 100 of my clients, right? I can't take all of them to federal court. I'm still a solo practitioner. I just opened up my firm this year. I'd love to be able to, but that's just not a practical reality. And I feel like the state, the schools, the districts, they're playing a numbers game. And they're saying, not everybody can afford complicated federal court civil litigation. The commissioner's appeal process is a complete waste of time. They do absolutely nothing and they wait until the end of the year before they give you a final decision on anything. So the only place that you can go for real meaningful relief right now during a federal shutdown is federal court. And, we're doing our best to get as many of these cases filed as possible. We're up to 4 of them that have been filed. We're getting ready to file a 5th today. We're filing them across New York State. We're in the Western District. We're in the Northern District. We're in the Eastern District. I'd like to get a case in the Southern District because New York City has its own tyranny. You think New York State is bad? New York City is even worse. They put their unlawful discretion and unlawful decision-making right in their regulation, right in plain sight for everyone to see. And then they I'm
sorry, I didn't mean but the state is also going after the Department of Health physicians. Like they are putting out a hit list of, not like a real hit list, but essentially a New York State Department of Health website of naughty medical doctors and nurse practitioners who are suspected to have sent out fraudulent vaccine records. It's like a FBI, top 10 most wanted list of mainly practicing medical doctors. I mean, these are licensed medical doctors that have been identified and targeted for the crime of writing a medical exemption for one of their patients, and so this now, the state is not only threatening, bullying the school districts and administrators, they're also threatening and bullying medical doctors and pediatricians, saying if you even write one medical exemption, we're going to scrutinize you and you could end up on this list. And it's like a nasty looking list. It is, horrifying. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you a chance to talk about that because that's insane. It really is like the Gestapo. Like when I call them vaccinazzis, I mean it because that's what it feels like to me. Like this is so intrusive. Go ahead.
No, 100%. And honestly, if I wasn't so involved in this, I would probably think that you're crazy for saying that. But the more that I get involved in this and the more that I see, you're 100% right. And this is fascism. This is honestly, at the end of the day, the New York State Department of Health and the way that they look at this issue and the way that they want to try to control this issue, it is through powerful government, fascist tactics, including this school vaccination fraud awareness website. So if you're not aware of it, go onto the New York State Department of Health website right now. You'll see over 20 doctors who are listed on there. They've been thrown up, over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And for every single, I shouldn't say every single one of the doctors. I got in trouble with the New York State Education Department for embellishing. But I'm going to say the vast majority of them, and certainly the doctors who I've talked with on that list, They did absolutely nothing to deserve being placed on that list. Really, what happened was they were writing medical waivers, and the state found out about it. They served them with a subpoena. They did a full audit of their entire practice, and then they
Jeez.
caught them on a technical violation, told them that they were going to bury them in legal fees and that they
Yep.
were going to lose their practice and lose their license. And so you need to plead guilty to this. So that way, we don't take your license and we don't take those steps, but we'll just put you on the school vaccination fraud awareness website. We'll take away your ability to put any records into NYS, which is a database that's used to keep track of vaccinations for patients and students. And if you do that to a pediatrician, right, if you take away their ability to be able to give vaccines or enter data about vaccines, I mean, you've pretty much taken away their ability to practice. So these doctors are leaving the state. So you have the New York State Department of Health, right, claiming that this whole thing on, vaccines is in the name of public health. Well, they've driven 20 medical professionals out of the state. How does that comply with the public health, especially when the majority of them, and certainly all of them that I've spoken with, did nothing to deserve being placed on that list other than writing medical exemptions, which the Department of Health disagrees with. I'm working with a doctor currently right now. Luckily I was able to work with her before she pled to anything, before this process got out of hand, before she responded to a subpoena. She came to me in the middle of September because out of the blue, her private school in Syracuse came to her and said, your child has fraudulent vaccination records. And of course, that was concerning to her. She's a doctor. And she said, what do you mean? What evidence do you have of that? And they basically told her, the state has evidence. We believe that these are fraudulent. And so your child is kicked out. Like they gave her no notice. It was the next day her child was kicked out of this private school after making these accusations against her. Now she's a doctor. So she reached out to a contact that she had at the New York State Department of Health. And she gave her son's vaccination records to this person. And she said, check these over. Is there anything that looks fraudulent about these records? And she said, no. She actually wrote back a note on a fax and said, these records look fine. I don't see anything that looks fraudulent or mistaken in it. I don't know what the issue is. That was an employee from the Department of Health. And so I took that and I sent it over to the school and I said, you're claiming that the Department of Health is investigating her. What evidence do you have of that? Do you have anything in writing? Can you give us more information, like what the complaint is and what the issue is? And they couldn't. They told me, you need to reach out to the Department of Health. Like the school basically said, we're not telling you anything and we have no obligation to tell you anything. So then less than 24 hours later, I get an email from the Department of Health Bureau of Immunization Commissioner. His name is Joseph Giovanti, I believe. People have, I guess, been familiar or heard of him before because he's been very involved in these.
Joseph Giovanti. And he's in the vaccine compliance patrol.
Which, it's, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but interestingly enough, in 2024, there was the Department of Vaccine Excellence that was passed through our 2024 budget. And I don't even know if people know that. So now these vaccine Gestapos have a large budget that they're using, and they're using our taxpayer dollars to go do that for some of these cases, including, somebody who just doesn't have a hepatitis B booster and 6 vaccine waivers saying that she shouldn't get it. So that's what our taxpayer dollars are going towards.
Oh my God.
Right. And so, the next day, Joseph Giovanti, he reaches out to me after basically I wrote to the school and said, give us where this is coming from. Where is your official statement saying that my client's being investigated? He reaches out to me and says, your client's being investigated and we're showing up at her practice next Tuesday to go and do the audit of all of her records. And I told him, no, you're not. And you're going to tell us why you think you have the authority to be able to do this. And then also, we're not doing this next Tuesday. Like, we're getting on the phone. We're talking this out. This is a complete invasion of my client's privacy, a Fourth Amendment right. I mean, we could just go down the list of how this violates the Constitution. It's left and right. And the worst part about the whole thing, right, is even though he didn't go and audit her practice on Tuesday, he sent somebody else from the Department of Health to show up with a subpoena and serve her practice with a subpoena, demanding all of these records from her practice, right? But keep in mind the quote unquote vaccine fraud that they're allegedly investigating pertain to something that didn't even happen at her practice when she
Right.
was a doctor. So yeah, I guess not to get too much into her story, but she was in Florida, then she went to New York, and when she was in New York, she went to Rochester first. She was a doctor. She was working at another practice, and she her son had vaccines in Florida. We have the records. We can prove it. We can show it. And she was in Rochester working at a practice, and rather than waiting for her upcoming annual physical with the new doctor in Rochester, she's a doctor. She has access to NYS. She put her son's vaccination records in from Florida because, the Florida doctor doesn't have access. She has access.
Right.
She did that, right? That is the fraud that we're talking about. And that happened before she opened up her practice in Syracuse. And
oh my word.
Now she is on a website, right, for the school vaccination fraud awareness website on the New York State Department of Health. She also, and her entire practice, right, all the nurses who work for her, they all lost their privileges to enter information into NYS. So all of these nurses, if they wanted to go and work at another practice, they're useless at this point because they don't have NYS privileges. And the state thought that they could do all those things without even actually bringing any charges. There are still no pending disciplinary charges against my client. There's also a process that the New York State Department of Health and New York State Education Department needs to follow before they bring disciplinary charges against a doctor. One of those is to provide notice to the person of what the charges are, what the allegations are, what the evidence is against them, and then giving them an opportunity at a hearing before a panel of New York State Education Department personnel, board members, to be able to present her case and say why what they're claiming isn't true. She was never afforded that opportunity. There are still no charges pending against her, but she most certainly did not get a chance to go and explain herself. They immediately started calling up doctors and her doctor in Florida. They called up the doctors in Rochester. They were going through and they were trying to get anything that they could on this woman in her practice and in her doctor, the doctor. They were trying to get anything that they could to be charges against her, sustain those charges. But she's been writing medical waivers at her new practice. She doesn't write them for everyone, right? But she has written medical waivers for some of her patients. And she's also vaccinated some of her patients. And so the state wants to try to investigate her to say that, she didn't actually vaccinate. Well, she was prepared. She knew that they were going to make those claims against her at some point. So she has all the receipts. She has all the invoices and the paperwork and
lot numbers, batch numbers.
She's got everything. She has everything ready to go, but we're not giving them a thing. We're not going to give the Department of Health a thing because they have no right to be able to issue this subpoena. They have no pending investigation against her. And the mistake made by the other doctors who are on that list is that they didn't have an attorney go through what the process was supposed to be. They disclosed the records. And that's the fatal flaw. You can't give the Department of Health or the state anything. They are going to find something. They are going to find a technical violation. If they want to get you, it's a political witch hunt. They're going to get you. And so you got to maintain privacy. And this is why, people should not be trustful of their government. And this is a prime example of why you shouldn't be trustful of your government.
Right. We're talking to Chad Davenport. By the way, his website is Chad Davenport or davenport.law. Is that the website? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
And
www.davenport.law.
Davenport.law. And you do educational videos on your rights and that type of, I heard you mention that earlier in the interview that
I did.
That you have.
Okay. So I did that over the summer. I did a couple of Zoom conferences with parents across New York State to explain to them what their rights were and what the Oceanside case meant. And then I plan to do more of them. So we're going to keep going.
I think that's going to be huge. Chad Davenport, by the way, New York State civil rights attorney specializing in medical freedom, has represented hundreds of families and kids who are denied education and all sorts of things due to their vaccination status, having their medical waivers declined by the schools. And by the way, Mama C 1996, I see your comment right here that, wow, these schools are drunk on power. I think what we've learned today from Chad is that the schools, the principals, the administrators really don't want to force vaccinate your children. They really don't have this kind of mission to promote and distribute vaccines. The schools are complying with Gestapo-like tactics that the Department of Health is leveling at any medical doctor, pediatrician, or school official or parent who happens to believe that children shouldn't be force vaccinated as a condition for entering school, and that medical waivers should be acknowledged. You mentioned something about, the religious exemptions being denied. We're not going to have time to get into that, but I think that actually tackles an even more fundamental. We didn't even get into the fundamental issue here. You're a civil rights attorney. There should be no place in this country where a federal government, a state government, a government bureaucrat, a local elected official, a local government organization, or any governmental or corporate institution or entity in any way, shape, or form should be able to force you or your child to be injected with something against your will, or to undergo a medical intervention against your will pertaining to your own body or the body of your child. Like, that is so basic. And that is what the Supreme Court refuses to look at. That frustrates me, because there have been about 100 years of really bad case law and precedent that has been set at the federal and state level that has elevated and protected this idea that the government can do anything they want to you if it is to protect, quote unquote, public health, if it is in the best interest of public health. It's the collectivization of your body. And it is ultimate slavery. It's basically the government saying, when it really comes down to it, if we want to inject you, we're going to make sure we can throw you on the mat, tie you down, and shove that needle in your arm, to so eloquently quote Alan Dershowitz, who is one of the worst vaccinazzis on the face of the planet. We're not going to have time to get to that today, but if you could quickly, am I off base in thinking this in terms of civil rights? Like, that at some point that's the discussion that has to be had?
Well, I think so. And I think, honestly, the reason why that discussion has been avoided for so long is because, we really haven't had an administration, and we really haven't had it be part of, I guess, the public dialogue, right? It's been something where we've talked about vaccine injuries maybe for, the past couple of decades. Some mothers and some parents have gotten together in groups, but it's been very private. And that's because, I would say prior to COVID and prior to maybe even the last year or two, when we started to see more about vaccine injuries and, how the COVID vaccine wasn't as safe or really safe at all. And I think the more that we start to see that, and the more that starts to become more like mainstream discussion and something that we can all talk about without getting shunned or kicked off of YouTube or kicked off of Facebook or whatever, I think that that's going to help the courts, because the problem is that, there's a lot of case law that really says that the government can't come in and force something into your body if it could cause harm. That's really, like, at the end of the day, like, what the standard is, right? We have bodily integrity. It's protected under the substantive due process clause of the 14th Amendment. And, that is something that has been used to trigger a lot of various different rights when it comes to medical freedom and bodily autonomy. But it is something that has not been used in the context of vaccines, because there's no proof that's out there that's been presented to the federal court or the Supreme Court, or really any argument that's been presented to the Supreme Court ever. No one's been, I guess, bold enough to make it, right, that these vaccines are actually causing harm, but I guess at the end of the day, like, it's not a question of, does it cause harm or does it not cause harm? The question just needs to be more so, is there a question that it might be? And, because the interesting part is, right, we just had this huge monumental Supreme Court decision over the summer, Mahmoud v. Taylor, and it was about whether or not schools in, I believe it was Maryland, had the right to be able to force students to engage in transgender education. Education as it pertained to transgender rights, and that there was no religious opt-out for it. Like if you had religious objections to it, you could not. There was no way that you could be able to ask for a religious opt-out from it. And so the Supreme Court basically said that that's not okay. That violates your First Amendment rights, and you cannot deprive parents of their fundamental rights to be able to control the upbringing of their children. And then also it becomes this hybrid, really important right, because it also involves the First Amendment and involves religious reasons, right? So there's this huge, right, decision that came from the Supreme Court this summer that is being argued right now by lawyers like Aaron Siri in his law firm, for Miller v. McDonald, right, and others who are actively looking into this as well, submitting amicus briefs. And I know that there were, I think, 20 attorney generals who recently submitted a brief in favor of his case as well. We need to get that case to the Supreme Court and heard, because I love that this administration came out recently in September and said there are some things that we're looking into, and we have a lot of really smart people looking into, are vaccines causing injuries? Is Tylenol causing injuries? We're looking into all of it right now. And I think the Supreme Court is the right makeup, and we're in the right place as a society to be able to tackle that question, right? Of like, okay, we thought vaccines were safe for the last 40 years. We've just added to the schedule vaccine after vaccine, and now maybe each individual vaccine isn't so bad. But like, let's look at the fact that we're now up to 70 something vaccines that a child's going to be getting up until they're 18 years old. And let's just think about, the effect of doing all of those vaccines. And also the fact that if you're over the age of 35 years old, you have received less vaccines than somebody who is 6 months old. So that 6-month-old baby has received more vaccine doses than somebody who's 35, right? We're in uncharted territory, right? These are a lot of chemicals and a lot of destabilization of our bodies and our immune systems. And it's really not studied, right? Like, this is the only thing where you're not allowed to be able to study, what the effects are of these vaccines. And, it's really just unfortunate. So I believe that because this is starting to become more mainstream and people are starting to understand more of the potential dangers of vaccines, I think the Supreme Court will be ready to hear this soon.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing from you, again, Chad Davenport, davenport.law is his website, davenport.law. If you want to touch base with him, also find him on Facebook. What I'm hearing from you is that the culture moves before the courts, and the courts will typically move before the politicians. I think that's kind of an immutable law of politics that we get messed up, right? Like, we want Donald Trump to move. And I have plenty of criticisms for Donald Trump, believe me. We want the politicians to do things. But many times within our movement, we're afraid to, because vaccine has been such a taboo subject and people have been so attacked viciously for speaking out about it, people have not been out there in the fore moving the culture. We've seen the culture move more than we've seen it move in 50 years because of COVID and what happened with the mRNA shots, which gives us an opportunity, I think, to continue to move the culture. But I still believe that going down this, I understand why the strategy is to go down this path of proving that vaccines can cause harm or may cause harm. But I still, at the end of the day, I don't care if it doesn't cause harm. If I don't want it in my body, I don't want it in my body. And I really don't see where there is a authority granted to governments or institutions or corporations to force me to take anything against my will, and I know maybe, I'm a little bit, Pollyanna about this. I want it done the right way, but I get where you're going. And I think that the direction is good. I really want to thank you for everything that you've been doing. Right now, you are representing right in my backyard, Penfield High School, Webster High School, denying the medical waivers, medical exemptions. 2 of their students now denying the students education because those waivers, which I believe were approved, have now been clawed back because of the Gestapo tactics of Joseph Giovanni and his thugs in the New York State. I'm saying that, not Chad. That's me, not Chad. But within the New York State Department of Health, going after, schools, practitioners, you name it. And you're representing these families. Again, I'm sandwiched right in between Penfield and Webster here in the Finger Lakes region. Can you tell us, we only have a couple more minutes, but can you tell us a little bit about that case and how that's going?
Yeah, two really important cases. One of the things that I heard you talking about, in North Carolina was that CPS was going after, a family for medical choice. And that's exactly what's happening or was about to happen here in this case. I don't know if people know this, but, they threatened CPS involvement for these parents who are not vaccinating their children, right? And they threatened it here. For my Webster case, we got a medical waiver. We submitted it. We went through the full commissioner's appeal process. It was denied because the commissioner's appeal process is just not what it's supposed to be. We submitted a second medical waiver. And then rather than the school responding to that medical waiver, they had the New York State Department of Health call up and say, we're going to get CPS on you. You just need to get this vaccine. Your child just needs to get this vaccine. And we're going to get CPS involved if you don't get that vaccine. So,
oh my word.
And the crazy part is like, that is not unique. That happens all the time. My understanding, luckily, is that, it's mostly an empty threat. I haven't heard of CPS actually knocking on anyone's door, but I mean, my clients called me in a panic. And so, for the Webster case, that's what led to us filing that federal lawsuit. We were like, we can't go through another commissioner's appeal process. They're threatening, to take this child away for trying to submit a vaccine waiver. So,
my word.
That one's, so we have two medical waivers in that one. And the child is just seeking a vaccine waiver for one Tdap booster. She's fully vaccinated other than that. She's 11 years old and hasn't been in school since September. And is receiving notifications that she's failing her classes and receiving, marks and, they're claiming dismissals, and it's terrible, right? So this 11-year-old girl is being victimized that way. And then I have a Penfield student who is a senior in high school. Again, just one vaccine that's missing for the student. It's the meningitis vaccine, and he has a valid medical waiver. We went through the full commissioner's appeal process again. We were denied, and we went to federal court. Now, the thing that's troubling about that one is that the medical director actually was the former pediatrician for that student. And so during COVID, the mother got into an argument with the pediatrician about whether or not her child should be receiving the COVID vaccine. And so she ended up leaving the practice over that argument. And this is the same guy 2 years later who is denying her valid medical waiver from another doctor. Oh, and by the way, when he talked with the doctor, our student's doctor, about the medical waiver, he didn't bring up anything about the medical reasons why he was denying it. He only wanted to talk about the fact that he couldn't accept the medical waiver because last time he did that, he quote unquote got his wrist slapped by New York State, and that he faced.
I was going to say his ribs cracked.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, it wouldn't be shocking for what's happening, right? No, so he said he got his wrist slapped, and that the school faced substantial fines if they were to accept it. So again, nothing that had to do with health or public health. It was just money, right? We're rejecting this because it would cost us money. So those are my two Webster and Penfield cases. And I'm actually from Webster. I know that I think I told you that offline, but had to sue my old hometown school district over this.
I love that. Small world. And really, really great job, Chad, that you are doing here in New York State. Again, for those of you watching nationally, what happens in New York State matters. If they can normalize it here, they will export it to all of you. And this is why we have issues now in North Carolina, that we are dealing with medical tyranny, many, many issues of medical tyranny stemming from the Texas Medical Board in the state of Texas, which is a red state. We know all about that from Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. So the persecutions are continuing and they are being exported. They're being normalized in New York State and perfected and then exported to the rest of you. So you are doing amazing work. I hear people just move out of New York State. Just move out of New York State. Well, the woman I talked to yesterday moved out of New York State to escape the medical tyranny, only to find herself in the claws of the medical tyranny in North Carolina. So this is why this issue is, in my opinion, Chad, the natural rights and the civil rights battle of our lifetime, of this century. I think it is all going to rest on informed consent, bodily autonomy, stemming mainly from forced and coerced vaccination by government entities. I think that is it. It's the slavery of 2000 of the 21st century. That's just my opinion. So I think that you're doing a great job. How can people help you? How can they learn more about these cases? How can they retain you if they need you? And what is the best way for people to kind of utilize your resources and help you continue to do what you're doing and also expand and help some of these families as well?
Well, what I would say is follow me on social media. Some of these things in terms of what we're trying to do next are still in the developing stages. What I can tell you is that there's a lot of really exciting things and a lot of exciting people that I'm talking with. But in terms of just generally speaking, I hope to have up by on my website, research for parents to be able to training videos. I would say follow me on social media and follow John Gilmore, Rita Palma, Michael Caine. These are all strong advocates within New York State. And so I'm working collectively, Autism Action Network.
Love them.
Teachers for Choice, and the I think it's
Children's Health
it's the Education for All Act, and I can't remember for Rita.
Right.
But if you follow her on social media, I mean, she's a very well-known person. And but yeah, no, I mean, these are all great organizations, great people, and I work very closely with them. And so I do training sessions with them. And I would say just follow those people. And, we'll certainly have more information coming out over the next week. But go to davenport.law. Hopefully by next week, I'm getting more updates and blogs and trainings and whatnot up there. But it's been a busy couple of weeks getting these lawsuits out. So, one step at a time for a solo practitioner.
Yeah, good. No, good for you. Those are all amazing people. Many of them have been regulars on the Shannon Joy Show. So John Gilmore has been on with me many times. Love Michael Caine. Hopefully I'll see you at the next lobby day in Albany, because I do love to go and meet them out there in Albany and lobby some of our legislators locally. But I think moving forward, I mean, I would really like to see, there is a lot that Bobby Kennedy Jr. could do from his position at HHS to rein in and slap the wrists of out of control state departments of health who are sicking the Gestapo on medical doctors and families and schools in pursuit of coerced vaccination. So there are legal fines. There are fines he can impose. There is the bully pulpit. There are a lot of ways that HHS could lend some air cover to the people who are fighting for medical freedom in the state of New York and in some of the worst states. So I would really like to see him step in to talk about medical freedom. And I think this would be a great thing to do. So I'll be calling him, out to kind of look at some of these things, because I think there are certainly some things that he can do from his position of power. And so we'll be working on that as well. But in the meantime, keep up the great work. And please keep me updated on everything that you're doing. And I'd love to have you on again as we continue this pursuit for freedom, basic freedom.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me again. And happy to talk more anytime you want to have me.
All right, you guys, he is Chad Davenport, really great attorney out of New York State. He's in the belly of the beast here. And you can find him on Facebook and also follow his work at davenport.law. That is davenport.law. This is what I talk about when I talk about bottom up, from your own corner of the world, according to your own unique talents and ability, doing what you can to pursue the cause of justice, to pursue the cause of liberty and truth, if you believe in those things, right? And it takes a lot of people activating from their own communities. Yes, even here in New York State, for those of us who decide to stay and fight for what we know is right. So I really love talking to people like Chad, and I think that he's going to be achieving some really great successes here in New York State. So we are going to go to a quick break. We have about 7 minutes left in the show. We started 17 minutes late today. Sorry about that. My bad. I had a lot that I wanted to get to and shove in. And we've had a busy week of medical tyranny. I mean, really tragic. The case yesterday out of North Carolina, and now 2 cases here in New York State, among others, of vaccine medical exemptions being denied. It's really tragic. And it just goes to show you that the answers are not in electoral victories, right? All of the work, all the time, all of the effort to put Donald Trump in office so that we could get Bobby Kennedy Jr. at the head of HHS. And after all of that, we have MAHA. We're talking about Tylenol. We might be investigating, autism and its links to childhood vaccination, right? But all of it is moving very slowly. We really haven't had a win for medical freedom. Nothing on the mRNA shots, nothing on addressing the plight of the vaccine injured, nothing on removing the emergency declaration that keeps the pipeline flowing with these mRNA technologies, no movement on just basic medical freedom, and the Department of HHS sending out guidance to states and to state health agencies about what medical freedom is and what they should be doing as agencies. We haven't gotten anything on removing vaccine mandates or language about vaccine mandates. So there's just a lot of areas that we have stagnated. And this is why we have to keep bringing these lawsuits, refuse to comply, refuse to consent. If you're a parent, do everything that you can in any states across the country to assert your God-given parental right to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of your child, right? Become educated, become activated and aware. And if, that's the culture moving. And I think that was the biggest takeaway today. And I've been percolating on this concept. As you all know, I am very close to deciding to boycott the 228 presidential elections and maybe even local elections as well, because I do believe that the Democratic electoral circus is a fraud. And I just don't want to lend my consent to it anymore. I haven't decided firmly, right? But the next question I get from everyone, well, then if you don't vote, then you don't have a right to say anything, do anything, criticize, complain, because I guess that's the only way to engage in civil society or in political action in the US. Like, just shut up, sit down, don't do anything, don't think, don't advocate, don't organize, don't become emancipated, don't become independent, don't do any of those things. You just shuffle your ass to the voting booth every 2 years and make a decision between one of 2 completely fraudulent candidates. The equivalent of choosing between Satan and Lucifer, in my opinion, right? And that's the only thing you can do, Shannon. That's what they say. That's the only thing you can do. All the other things, don't matter. I just don't buy that. And what I learned today, and Chad Davenport is right, it is the culture. It's what's happening. It's we the people, and whether or not we're lending consent. They can't get away with these things if enough of us are just like, we're not playing and we're not doing it, right? If these school districts had 1,000 religious, philosophical, and medical exemptions every single year, then they wouldn't be able to get away with this, right? They would not be able to keep this under wraps because the culture would be moving too far against whatever it is that they're trying to impose on us. It's a big picture analysis, but I think that it's the key. And it's why Trump might not get away with bailing out OpenAI and the big tech bros, because the market's moving against him. It's why they couldn't normalize forced vaccination and coerced vaccination throughout the United States of America, because enough of us refused to consent to it. We didn't win anything, do anything, elect anyone, or get a court victory. Enough of us, 35 to 40% of the American population, just said hell no. And we became, the center point of that resistance and the control group, right? We are winning. The reason the culture is where it is now on vaccines is because of the decision that was made individually by millions of Americans who just said, we're not going to take the shot. No matter what you do to us, say to us, rip away from us, whether it impacts our job, our families, our reputations, and our money, we're not taking the shot. Like, that is so powerful. You know, back in the day when there were monarchies and kings and queens and, you know, the little people had no rights whatsoever, the kings and the queens and the monarchs still feared the angry mobs with pitchforks. Like, they still built towers with moats and all kinds of guards because they were afraid of something. Okay? Even when they had all the power, even when we didn't have a constitution and there was no Bill of Rights and there wasn't any, you know, understood natural law about natural rights and human rights. None of that existed, but the people in power still feared the culture and the collective, right? That is where I want to operate. That's where I want to be. Because I'm sick and tired of getting into the mud with these pigs, Democrats and Republicans. They are liars. They cheat. They stab us in the back. They seize the bodies of our children. They destroy our economies. They rip away the dream of home ownership, the American dream of home ownership and property ownership. They deny us opportunities. They crush our God-given natural rights as laid out in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights. They laugh at us as they're doing it. Like, I don't want to beg them for anything anymore. I would rather work and figure out ways over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years on how to move the culture. How do we do that? And I think we can do it. We've already had successes. And so this is why, I know I'm going to get a ton of flack for this. This is why, because I'm a political analyst. I will be a political analyst who refuses to engage in the political apparatus in terms of electoral democratic voting, right? On electronic voting machines. I mean, that was the beginning of the end, wasn't it? That's just where I am here. And that's just where I want to go. So we're going to come back after a quick break. I want to get some of your comments and then we're going to close out the show. Really appreciate all of you. Really appreciate Chad Davenport. Again, Davenport.law. That's Davenport.law. When we come back, get your comments and your questions ready. We're going to have about 5 minutes of Q&A and comment reading right here on the live chat. So we'll be back in a moment. I want to hear from you. Keep it tuned right here on the Shannon Joy Show.
Get ready to rethink how you build and deploy your retirement wealth.
Traditional investing is dead.
Aggregated total of monies in retirement funds in the U.S. are pushing $35 trillion right now.
The capital's there, and it's invested in just basic stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And
I think that the investor of today just needs to expand what they can do with that money.
So with Rocket Dollar, you can make private and alternative investments, single-family property, homes, limited partnership investments in private equity and venture funds. It could be even cryptocurrencies or digital assets and everything in between. Holding real estate next to your public stocks, and I always joke around that it's no longer the S&P 500, it's the S&P 7. And dollar for dollar, if you own these inside of IRAs,
you typically end up getting 20 to 40% better annual returns than owning the same investment outside of that IRA account because you don't have to pay taxes on an ongoing basis.
I have parents who have no retirement savings because they work in the restaurant industry. I love that I figured out a way to be impactful to Main Street, normal working individuals, people that it would have changed the course of my parents' lives had they met someone like that.
I don't know about all of you, but if you are unable to sleep at night, like I sometimes am, there's a lot going on in the world today. A lot to stress over, and maybe you have some anxiety. There's nothing worse than laying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to fall asleep, and you are unable to do so. This is why I love Perfect Sleep Max. It's an amazing product, and it combines, what is the key to good sleep? Well, it's melatonin and magnesium. And Perfect Sleep Max actually combines melatonin plus magnesium to relax your muscles and your nervous system and help you to fall asleep fast. But not only will you fall asleep fast, you'll also stay asleep. And the best part is you'll wake up refreshed because they have the L-theanine and GABA. They have dopamine and serotonin promoters. And this just helps you get that perfect night of sleep from Perfect Origins. It's Perfect Sleep Max, and there is a huge deal right now. You can get a free giveaway, a free 3-month supply of Perfect Sleep Max if you go to perfectorigins.com/SJS-PSM. Make sure you use that promo code MIA for 25% off your purchase, but you can sign up for a free 3-month supply of Perfect Origins Perfect Sleep Max. So welcome back, everyone, to the final segment of the Shannon Joy Show. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Daniel Horowitz, it's been way too long. He'll be with me live in the Joy Virtual Studio tomorrow. Of course, we have Jack Gamble. He is a phenomenal market analyst and expert in the tech industry. And we're going to be focusing heavy on the incoming big tech bro bailout that Donald Trump is fixing to deploy. He wants to do it. He needs to do it. It's how he got elected as president of the United States of America, because the tech bros put him there, right? So he owes them, but we the people can stop it. The culture, if we stand up and speak out and make it very painful for them to go down this path, which, by the way, would be worse than the 2008 bank bailout of George W. Bush, which sparked the Tea Party revolution. All right. So we're going to be focusing heavily on that tomorrow, Monday, and early next week. So you guys are not going to want to miss this show, because people who are prepared for this, the bubble is bursting. It's going to come crashing down on our heads, the little people. Those of you who have not divested, who have not created a hedge for your 401k, your retirement, you're going to be in trouble. And so we're going to be talking about what people can do to protect themselves when this happens. We also have to stave off. Remember, they're going to use this to usher in the digital currency, which is basically digital food stamps, right? It's going to be completely controlled by the government. So this economic pain is necessary for the digital police surveillance state to lock into place. And as you know, that is everyone on digital money. Everyone's digital money is connected to their digital ID. That becomes your identity, right? Your online virtual avatar, and they will use that to control everything you do. If you are not complying with the government, they know everything. They have all of your information. They can shut off your money. They can limit your movement geographically, which we've seen in other states. I mean, there are very, very terrible things that they would like to do, but necessarily they need the crash and then they need the bailout for these massive tech companies, which really aren't even that revolutionary or that innovative. It's basically just setting up a tech surveillance state. So the whole point is just to surveil all of you all the time, forever, and thrust us into a new 21st century digital tyranny. So all of this works together. Our job is to throw as many wrenches in the plan as we possibly can. So we're going to be doing that on Friday and Saturday. I see some of your comments here. I see you, Bill Benz. Shannon, Dr. Peter McCullough says that 19% of Americans probably at best decline the COVID shots. Bill says, don't inflate the numbers. Your case is strong on its own merits. I actually disagree with Dr. Peter McCullough. I think that 19% is a very low estimate. I think when you count young people, children, people who did not get vaccinated but obtained fake vaccine cards, people who lied and said they were vaccinated when they never were, and also people who outright refused, I would say it's probably closer to that 30 to 35%, maybe even more. And the way that you know this is that the government really will never release those numbers. So you know that they're bad. So I actually disagree with Dr. Peter McCullough, Bill Benz. I think that 19%, but 19% is huge. I mean, that's all you need. We probably only needed about 10%, to be honest, to completely obliterate their plans for for a new 21st century norm of mass coerced and forced vaccination. They tried their hardest, but they failed because enough of us said no. That exact same strategy is going to be how we defeat every other plan that they level at us. They want us on a digital ID. We need 10% of people to say, oh, hell no. They want us with a digital currency. We need 10% of the people or more to say, oh, hell no. They want us to do this. They want us to do that. We don't need the entire population. We just need a motivated minority. And I think it's going to be more. So 19% works too. But Bill, you're missing my larger point. Like, we're grappling about the numbers and disputing the numbers, and we do that way too much as conservatives. It's the larger point, I think, that matters. Melanie is with us. Karen Carpenter, 27. Mod Trend. Shannon, how do you feel about Mamdani winning in New York State? Well, I'm going to go to something that Ed Dowd retweeted. You know, if you're worried about Mamdani, the communist in New York City, you might want to be more worried about Trump, the communist socialist in the presidency of the United States of America. Because let me tell you, the bailout for OpenAI, the welfare queens in the tech industries will absolutely obliterate the amount of money spent and how many people will be destroyed than anything that Mamdani could achieve as the mayor of New York. By the way, the mayor of New York doesn't really have any power. I think that a lot of there was a lot of campaign style rhetoric surrounding the Mamdani election. And then we had the normalization of Trump endorsing Andrew Cuomo, who is a Democrat, which I didn't even get to this week, which is insane. Okay, maybe we'll talk about that with Daniel Horowitz tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I think that the right wants us to obsess over the communists in New York City, but we can't look at the communists in the White House. So then I don't trust their analysis. And to me, it looks like there's some other agenda here and some other operation. There are probably a couple different angles that they would like to push out. So I say let New York City deal with their own communist. We have one that we have to deal with at the federal level. Fez Woody is with us. Voting for the lesser of two evils is still evil. Karen Carpenter, 27. Trump was a lifelong Democrat. I believe that Trump is still a lifelong liberal, progressive Democrat. He always was. He always will be. And that is what we're dealing with. The most amazing thing is that he tricked so many Christian conservatives into believing that he was actually one of them. Absolutely astounding. Mark the Regan, more and more are waking up, but it is agonizingly slow and seems like some never will. Mark the Regan, some never will. Just get over it. Stop worrying about the people who are not going to wake up to these things. Shake the dust off your feet. Those people don't matter. They're on their own. At this point, we need to wake up just enough. And yes, it is agonizingly slow, but I will tell you from my perspective after doing this for 12 years that it is accelerating. I am watching people wake up like that. That's a huge cultural shift. And that means that we're winning. So that's all I have to say about that. All right, guys, that is the show for today. Thank you for being with us on the Shannon Joy Show. Make sure that you remember our advertisers, of course, the folks over at Rocket Dollar, the folks over at Perfect or at Sleep Max Plus from Perfect Origins, and Purge. Make sure that you are taking care of the parasites. 15% off Purge products when you use my promo code JOY. The link is in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. You guys are great. We will meet back here tomorrow. Daniel Horowitz, keep it tuned here. We'll do it all again on the Shannon Joy Show.